Alright, today we are going to can green beans. And green beans is a little different method than pickles and salsa because there's no acidity. So green beans, potatoes, carrots, vegetables that are low in acidic values, you have to use what's called a pressure canner. So this is a pressure canner. This is an older style. There's a dial on all of them, and it's by poundage. And so for green beans, it's 10 pounds. So that's how much pressure that this pot will hold when hot and boiling. 10 pounds for 25 minutes for green beans. So you're going to need a few things. We're going to wash our green beans several different times because you want to ensure that there's no dirt getting inside your green beans. And since the green beans that I have came from our garden is very dirty, and you want to make sure that you wash them well, and before you wash them, you have to pop them. So last night, my husband and I sat on the front porch, and we broke all the beans, but a few, because I wanted to show you what you have to do. So on a bean, when you pick it, there's two ends. So this end has like a little tail, and then this end was what was connected to the bush, and that's where the flower that I showed you on the gardening video was at. So in order to do that, you break both ends. These flat beans have strings, so you have to de-string them as well. And then you break off the tail. And then you break it in half, and you pull the other string. So I have a few here that I need to break. I have a mix of flat beans and Roma beans. We like to do a little mix of both. Our favorite is the Italian style flat bean. But we actually had to plant our garden twice this year because the seed that I got from Apple Acres, which is in Bedford, wasn't any good. So I had to go get new, and they only had Romas. So they're a round bean, and then the flat beans is an Italian bean. So I think I have them all broke, and as I'm washing, I'm going to look for bad spots. There's also just, natural dirt that comes from a garden, and if it doesn't come off, I'm going to break that part of the bean. So I just take a few beans, and I wash them around, and I'm washing in cold water, and I just really scrub each individual bean, and then I put it in a separate colander in my sink. Alright, so now that I have all the beans out of this colander, I'm actually going to change my sprayer to the shower head version. And I'm going to clean out all the dirt that was in this colander. And then I'm going to actually put the beans back in for a second rinse. Going to rinse them one more time really well, moving them around, making sure that they're really clean. You don't want to preserve dirty beans. And once they're good and clean, you're going to take washed and sanitized jars, and you're going to fill the beans up till the 1-inch rim. Once you get to the top, you kind of have to pack them in there so that they fit down in there. While you're doing this, you're also looking for, again, any bad spots that you missed while washing. So now I have my beans in there. So I'm going to get a new jar. And then I just continue the process. We actually had 2 gallon-sized bags plus a half of one that we popped, and that all was a 5-gallon bucket that we picked. And after we pop them, we store them in the refrigerator. So usually we'll pick one night, pop that night once we get inside, and then we process them, or I can them the next day. This jar is not quite full, so on my next batch I'll fill it up. Okay, so I have 7 jars here that are filled with clean beans and packed in. And so I'm going to put lids on them and put boiling water over the top. But first, I need to add a teaspoon of salt to each jar. And this just is the preservative that is in canned beans to prevent bacteria and to help process it. You can use table salt. You don't have to use canning salt. And 1 teaspoon is more than enough. And then after you can these and you're ready to eat them, you just drain off the salt water and then put your favorite chicken stock or whatever. So my water is boiling, so I'm going to carefully fill jars up. And you only want to fill as many that you have room in your canner to process. You're wanting to leave a 1-inch head space. So as soon as you pour over the salt, it automatically is going to dissolve in all of the liquid. And while, gotta get this out of the way for just a minute, I'm gonna add more water to my kettle and get it hot. Need more water. Turn that up So this one's not quite full. And I'm going to take my air bubble spatula and go down each side of the jar, and you're going to see bubbles coming up the jar. And your water level usually goes lower than what it is. You just want to make sure that the beans are covered. You don't want some beans staying out of the water because they will become dry. And these beans can sit on the shelf for up to 2 years. Fresh green beans are great. Alright, so this is starting to boil, so I'm going to carefully add just a little bit more water to these jars. Fill these two up. I already had salt in. Add these to my pressure canner. And the reason why I left the tea kettle on for now is because I may need to add water to my pressure canner, and it's a lot easier to add boiling water versus cold water. I'm going to actually just put 5 of these jars in. You can fit 6, but because I have another batch, I kind of want them to be even, and I have 10 total, so I'm going to kind of step back because I don't want that to burn me. That's really hot. Alright, so now I'm going to put the lid on, and pressure canning can be a little scary. So now you want the pressure to go up to 10, and then you'll reduce the heat to stay at 10. So you're just watching this dial go up, and it is a long way, but 10 is straight up and down. So this so my pressure cooker has completely decompressed pressure, and you know this because there's a top back here that the little piece of the lid will pop up when there's pressure, and you never open a pressure cooker until that is down all the way, and you should be at 0 on pressure. So I'm going to unscrew this lid. You just want to be really careful when you do this because it is going to be extremely hot. Make sure that hot water doesn't get on you. And then I'm going to carefully remove my cans. And I have already started the process is, and you can hear it sizzling, and that is normal. That's part of being pressure. You can also tell the color of the beans are much different. And here in a second, I will show you the difference in color. And then as these cool, we'll hear the pop of the lid on the seal. So these are jars that have been processed for 25 minutes in the pressure canner. And if you look close, you can see bubbles going up. And then these really green, bright green beans are ones that have not yet been in the pressure cooker. And so there's 3. We have 2 here, and then we have 5 that we are getting ready to put in. So I'm going to wipe off my lids, and I will just repeat the process that I did with these. In the pressure cooker, put more water if I need it, and then get it up to 10 pounds of pressure, and then naturally let it come down. And it takes about 30 minutes for the canner to come out of pressure. It took about 30 minutes for it to come down. You don't want to rush that process because it can actually blow off and the jars could break. And so that's the part of pressure canning that is dangerous. And you never leave the kitchen while you have the pressure cooker engaged. And engaged means that you have the valve over the stem and you're building pressure. You always want to stay inside the kitchen when that happens. And if you do ever pressure can, make sure that you have an adult with you, especially until you learn the process. That I have a lock lid. So here's my lid. So to put this on, there's rivets on this pot, if you can see, and there's rivets all along here. Well, those rivets is actually what locks this into place. This is also, if you can see at the bottom there, that's the piece that goes up and down, and then you heard it smack down. That is how you know if you have pressure in the pot. And there's arrows to make sure you get it on right, and then once you're locked, you can put pressure on. Now, with the pot like this, I can turn on my heat and I can get it to a boil, but it's not going to hold pressure until you have the valve cover on. And that just goes here, and it's very weighted. It probably weighs, I'd say, at least 5 pounds. And then we're going to start the process all again. So I will wait until, again, it gets to 10 pounds of pressure, set my timer for 25 minutes, and then once the pressure has come back down to 0, then I will remove the lid safely and put the rest of my jars out on my towel to cool. Tomorrow, I will come back and I will write the date. I don't usually write green beans on it, but if you use dark colored jars, you would want to write on it what it is. But I always write the date.